Good morning, Wide Bay viewers, and welcome to the very first edition of Wide Bay ITV's The Creative Space. So what is the creative space? Well, the creative space is something we hope to showcase local Wide Bay artisans of all genres and of all standards. Today, I am very privileged to welcome our very first guest to the show, local artist Jess Newitt. Welcome, Jess.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being a part of our very first show. So Jess, I had the privilege of seeing you not that long ago at the Moore Park Beats Festival networking night, and you were brilliant. So tell me, what inspired you to follow the art path?
When I was a little kid, I always loved art and I used to paint all the time. But Mum said when I was 8, we went to World Expo 88 and I got lost. And they told us if we get lost, go to, the lost kid area. But when Mum came to pick me up, they wouldn't let me go because apparently I was in charge of everyone colouring in and painting and teaching my own little art class then. So I think it's just something I've always done and loved. I was really lucky in year 10. I had an amazing art teacher who really pushed me down that path and made me want to be an art teacher. So, yeah.
Speaking of getting into art at such a young age and at school and having great teachers, do you think that influences a lot of children getting into art?
I think so. A lot of because I teach art as well at school, a lot of my students are very much swayed as to whether they continue art if they like their teacher or if they don't like their teacher. It's very much a depending factor on whether they follow art.
Do you see kids that maybe start art at a younger age and keep going, and do you see how much their styles have developed with different teachers?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really good when they're actually teaching art in primary schools instead of just doing art on a rainy afternoon when sport can't be on. And you see these kids just get a love of arts. And now that, the arts is compulsory in primary school, you're seeing a lot more kids come to us in high school with an absolute we've done this, we've done that, can we have a look at this artist, can we do that? So it's really nice that they're excited about art. Yeah.
When you started, what was your first art medium?
But I was trying to think back when I was a kid, and it was actually watercolour all the time.
Watercolour. I've tried art watercolour, and I find it wasn't the easiest of mediums for me to get into. And I've always been acrylic, I think, because I like the idea with acrylic I could just wash the canvas off and start again. Yeah. In the days gone by, it used to be just 1, 2 or 3 styles, and now I'm seeing a lot of mixed media and some fantastic new ideas. Do you think that influences the kids, the older kids now? I see some incredible local talent that we haven't even tapped into, and they're doing amazing work. I mean, I see once upon a time there was the old rule, you never mixed oil colours or acrylics or watercolours, you never put them 2 together or 3, and now I'm seeing artists that are mixing styles and the work looks fantastic.
Well, I've been teaching art 19 years, and when I first started teaching, you would plan a painting unit, you would then plan a clay unit, you would plan a drawing unit. We don't plan like that anymore, and that's how my art is too. It's not like, I'm just going to stick to one medium. It's actually more thematic, and it's about what skills they're developing, and it's all about how you can just grab whatever medium you want and put it together and explore and experiment, and that's how intuitive art works. It's not about it must do this, it's let's experiment, see what it does, and then you'll come up with better results.
I've noticed over the years that you just mentioned intuitive art, that we have a lot more people getting into intuitive art. Do you think that's because now as time has gone by we realise that we don't have to be a Rembrandt or we don't have to be technically perfect, we're just doing art for the love of it? So I've noticed there's a couple of, you've brought in some beautiful colours here and some of your artwork. Can we just have a look at the smaller one, and can you just explain now, for a lot of us at home, I'm sure we've heard the saying, I cannot draw a stick figure, but I want you to have a look at this. This is an amazing, absolutely stunning. I don't even think the cameras don't show just how beautiful this work is. That's definitely not a stick figure, but how simple or complicated would that be?
It's a watercolour and ink piece, and it's not that complicated. It's something I do where I will sit at my back table and put out about 20 sheets of paper and then just play with colour and put mark making down, and then as each one dries, I move on to the next one and then add another layer, then let that layer dry. And so I can sit there for 4 hours, but by the end of it I'll have probably 5 finished pieces, 10 half finished pieces, and 5 that I won't look at for another week because I don't know what I did to them. But yeah, they're just working with paint pens, fluid acrylic, mix of everything. And it's, as you said, it's intuitive. It's about just sitting there and seeing the shapes and the patterns and the colours and what your mind wants to do once you have a look at them. I don't plan any of them at all. Yeah.
Do you think that with the intuitive art now, I'm seeing lots of different styles and we're seeing it become more accepted, whereas once upon a time, I think the art critics used to say that, you know, you had to be technically this or you had to be technically that. Where do you see art going in the next, say, 5 to 10 years?
I think what's happened is people have understood the importance of art for their well-being. They've understood the importance of the state of flow, which is basically when you meditate, when you relax, when your mind's not busy with a million things. My way of finding my flow is through a paintbrush. So as soon as I sit there for longer than 10 minutes and start painting, I go into my own little world and my whole body relaxes and your stress relief is disappearing. So I think people with COVID especially, a lot of people took to, oh, let's try art at home, or let's try a paint and sip, or let's try this, because there's so much pressure from everything in the outside world that they worked out. And it even started with, you know, colouring in books and Zentangle. People are starting to realise, hang on, there's actually something behind this. We need to look after ourselves. And it's not about being a painter, and it's not about becoming an artist. It's about being mindful and working on how do I escape from reality or the real world and the pressures of the real world.
Tess, you mentioned there the typical, well, not the typical, the paint and sip style of art, and I've noticed that has become so popular.
Yeah.
Now I know that you do these amazing workshops as well.
Yeah.
So what sort of workshops do you do?
I do a lot. I'm trying to. So my favourite, I have 2 favourites, but one of them's called Uncork Your Imagination, and it's my take on paint and sip. I don't like everyone to copy my painting and do the same thing, so no one walks out of there with the same canvas. I basically show how I paint, and this is probably a good time to show you this one. So I'll just check you haven't got the reflection there. This is my abstract botanical style, and I basically show everyone how to do a background layer, and we all do a background layer together. Then I'll show you how to do floral forms or abstract shapes, and we let that layer dry. And then we work over the top with mixed media, flat, and we get rid of the actual easel and we start working on that. So Uncork Your Imagination is having a few drinks. I have a beautiful friend that does these amazing platters for me, and we just have food, drink, lots of fun times, have music on the whole time, and yeah, it's a lot of people's favourite. I do have one lady who's been to 4 now. She really enjoys coming to those.
For someone who really wants to get into art and just wants to do it as a passion and a joy, but maybe go a little bit further, what way would you recommend for them to go?
Just practice. Like, you don't need degrees, you don't need to go and get your masters and things like that. There are online art courses all over the place that you can learn new techniques from, that you can sign up for different ones. There's so many classes available in Bundaberg now that you can go to. And I just find the more you want to find your own style, the more you have to explore every other style. So it's about just getting in there and making time for art, and then working out what your passion is, what area of art you want to work in. It depends what you want to do with your career, though. You know, not everyone's going to want to be, an artist. Like, my little nephew thinks because I'm on the internet, I'm a famous artist, and he likes to tell his teacher that. And I'm like, Byron, I'm not a famous artist. I've just got a Facebook page and a website that have my art on it. But in his eyes, you know, I'm a famous artist, which is, you know, fantastic that a 10-year-old thinks that. But I don't know. Like, it was never my desire to become an artist. My desire was always to be involved in art and help others with art. So I think that's why I just finished a couple of months ago, actually, my diploma in art therapy. And I think that'll really help me not only with my workshops, but with my high school teaching of art, because, as I said to you before, it's about well-being as well, art. So it just depends which path you want to take.
I love this painting that's just sitting behind us on the easel. So to the viewers out here, you can't really appreciate the colours that are in it, but I absolutely love this. What was behind this painting? And to the audience that may be looking at it, how easy was it to do?
That painting was done when I was on leave. I took 6 months off, and I was exploring an artist, actually, Susan Nethercote, an amazing artist from, I want to say Melbourne, but I have a feeling she's New South Wales, from down south. And I did a course with her online, actually, and she taught me so much about layering and working with texture. So that piece there is very much using a sgraffito technique, which is where you carve back into the paint with either a palette knife, end of the brush, or your finger. And working with different textured mediums and just going with the flow and not planning out what the artwork was. That colour that you see there, that's called Southern Ocean Blue. I don't think I have many paintings that don't have that colour in it. It has become my all-time favourite colour when painting.
When painting, I think we all have a signature colour or a signature thing. I mean, when I'm painting, I don't even put up whose painting it is, and quite a few people that I know will say, yes, I know it's one of your paintings, because I didn't even realise, but I tend to put a particular flower in all of my paintings, and it crops up time and time again. So obviously all of our artists have their favourite thing. So have you tried anything else other than painting? And if you have, what were the results? So have you tried things like pottery or...
You can ask any of my students. I avoid clay at all costs because I am hopeless at clay. I failed it in Year 11 art. I failed it at university, except my writing got me through that unit. It's a texture thing for me, but I have just recently, at Easter actually, I did a clay workshop, but it was slip pouring. So I didn't have to mould or anything and work with it. And it was actually amazing. And it was the first piece I've ever fired in a kiln that I've been proud of and that didn't break. So I'm actually getting into slip casting with Shelley Pisani, a local artist. She's been teaching me a lot about it and teaching me how to actually decorate on the slip casting with a drawing and painting technique that you then transfer on. So that's been fantastic because you can still kind of include your painting into the ceramic work. So
absolutely wonderful. Well, readers, we're just going to take a short break, and during the break we're just going to pop up a few of Jess's paintings for you to have a look at and admire them, and we'll be back in just a moment to finish our talk. Welcome back to Wide Bay ITV, and we are filming our first edition of The Creative Space. Our very first guest is Jess Newitt. Now, during the break, we've managed to pop up a few of Jess's beautiful artworks. And along with the artworks, we've popped up a few of her beautiful art on products that you can actually order from Jess. Now, Jess, some of your artworks, we saw the beautiful stubby holders that you've got. The colours in them are amazing. Yeah. And aprons. I mean, I love the trend that now aprons just don't have to be these boring pieces of material. Yeah. And they're an artwork in itself. But I love the tote bag. Yeah. The tote bags were just absolutely beautiful. And we're all into recycling. We're all into having things that are beautiful. Yeah. And I noticed that you do have a tote bag down there, so I'll just get you to pop that up and show the audience.
This is a well-used one. So I found the need for being a teacher that you need bags and lots of them when you're moving from classroom to classroom. So I just decided to put some of my favourite artworks on these. And from that, I had friends saying, can I get that artwork on a bag, please? Can I get this? So that's where it started. So now I think there's 25 different designs that come on tote bags, and 2 different sizes. And they're just fantastic for like the beach work. I use mine as a handbag. It's actually got my car keys in it right now. But yeah, just something different, I thought, because you can just scrunch them up, throw them in another bag and then take them shopping.
I love that idea. So it's this very interesting thing that you mentioned about copyright and people selling your designs. And I noticed that there is a lot of artists and a lot of photographers at the moment having a battle with the internet and putting their work up and people actually copying their designs and passing them off as their own. So what would you recommend, or what would be the best advice you could give to a budding artist not to have their work stolen?
Being careful where you put it in the first place. I actually had a student of mine, amazing artist. She had several of her work stolen. So she now, with her Instagram and her website, she actually puts a watermark over everything so that even if you want to zoom in and have a look at it, her name and there's a logo printed all over it so you can't take it. I think the hardest bit is there's got to be a balance of how much do I want people to see my artwork versus am I going to put, a watermark or a design on it so that no one can take it. It just depends. I think my issue with copyright and people stealing art, which is what they're doing, is copying another artist. And it's something I teach my students. There's a difference between stealing and appropriation. And sometimes it's wonderful if someone's trying to mimic your style, but you'll also have to develop your own style.
So when you're actually painting, say if you're painting, it could be a plant or it could be something in the garden, do you look at the shape and the form and get really technical, or do you just look at it and go, I'm just going to go with the colour?
It depends what style of painting I'm doing. So when I look at flowers or at plants, I don't look at the overall. I'm looking at every detail on them, and I'm looking at the colour and the texture and the patterns that are actually on the plant. So that whole idea of seeing like an artist is looking at the negative space and the positive space, looking at the texture. So all the elements and principles of art that start to stand out to you. You don't actually see the whole thing as a plant. You're looking at sections of it and what's interesting. And that's why I love working on the whole idea of zooming in on something and really getting the detail out of it. But if I'm drawing a portrait, I am totally different way of looking at it. It's not about colour at all. It's about every single line, every single detail you can see in the eye. So it's piece by piece. So when I do a portrait, I start with one eye and then work my way through the face. I never start with the whole sketch of the face. It always starts with an eye and then works its way out.
Do you enter very many art competitions? And if you do, how do you find the judging the process and what is it like as an artist?
I push my students to enter every competition possible for them, because it's great exposure and for them to get used to having their art being looked at by other people other than just me in the classroom or student, our whole class. I did a deal, I think 2 years ago with a student. When I said, I want you to enter this, they said, only if you do. And I went, okay. So I make sure now I enter as well. I make my students enter, I don't make them, I ask them to do it, and they love to do it. Bundaberg Show this year, they had works in there. Their Moore Park Beach Arts Festival, long one to say, Bundaberg Art Prize, and then we're really lucky, we've actually got an exhibition just for my students coming up at the Book Boutique in town.
How does an artist arrive at the pricing of a painting?
That's one of the hardest things there is. So some people think it's based on time, how much time did I spend on the artwork? Some people think it's based on the size of the artwork. Some people think it's based on your emotional attachment. It just depends. It also depends on how well recognised you are, how much you can price an artwork for.
Was there any other artists along the way, any well-known artists that maybe influenced your style? Or perhaps what of the artists that maybe Australians know, that who would be some of your favourites?
When I was a teenager, Salvador Dali was my favourite, but there is no way I could paint as detailed and surreal as him. Andy Warhol's always been one of my favourite artists. In terms of influencing my style, though, depends on what we're looking at. With my abstract botanicals and a lot of my more recent work, there's actually 3 different Australian artists that I work with at the moment or do workshops with. One is Angela Miller. She's in New South Wales. I just flew down and did a workshop with her for 2 days, and it was fantastic. And she's really influencing my abstract, more fluid style. Another one is Natalie Parker. She's actually an ex-Kiwi who lives in Melbourne, and she does a lot of work with botanicals. She has taught me so much. I've done a lot of her courses with her. And then Susan Nethercote is the other Australian artist that I've really taken to in terms of how she uses floral as well. Now, the 3 of those are established artists in Australia, but a lot of people wouldn't know them unless they had social media or unless they are following how art is sold online. So Blue Thumb Gallery is a place where people sell their art online. And a lot of these artists have work in there, in places like that. But in terms of my all-time favourite Australian artists, go back to 2 of them, and it would have to be, when I was a kid, Ken Doan, because I had Ken Doan bedspread and clothes and scrunchies and everything. So I still love Ken Doan's work. But Brett Whiteley has always been a favourite, and especially when I work with ink and charcoal and portraiture, I'm working the way Brett Whiteley did. And then Ben Quilty is I want to say young, he's about my age. He's an Australian artist who works with really, really thick oil paint, and it's beautiful layers of texture. So I have lots of favourite artists.
The one thing I have found with Bundaberg is we have so many talented artists in not only Bundaberg but the Wide Bay region. Have you found being in Bundaberg, I look online, we talk about social media, and there always seems to be something every single day.
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
And with that art platform, I mean, do your students, we talk about entering competitions, are they getting into trying more than one style of painting, one style of art medium? Are they doing the whole gamut of art?
Yep. Can't stick to the same thing. Got to keep trying, find your own style.
So do you ever look at a student and think, you could be the next potential? Do you see a potential in them at a very young age?
Oh yeah, definitely. I often have them in year 10, 11 and 12, and it's really nice when you've actually had them for the 3 years straight and looking at how they started with you in year 10 and how they finished in year 12, seeing the change in them. But even at my personal workshops, not at school, when I've got kids workshops, you can pick a kid that you know needs to follow art because they've got something special. Yeah, you can definitely see it in them.
I've got to say, I am very, very honoured that you agreed to come on our very first program. And as I said, I just love your art. Now, we're going to pop up some details for people. So have you got any workshops up and coming in the near future that perhaps people can jump on and have a look at?
Yes, so I've just updated my Facebook page and my website with all the workshops that are coming up, but there's three at the moment coming up. One is an Uncork Your Imagination on the 23rd of July. Then I've got a watercolour workshop because I did a poll on my page and everyone wanted more watercolour, so we're doing another watercolour workshop. And then I have my abstract botanical course, which is 4 weeks of taking you through all different theory behind it, as well as how to do your colour palettes, as well as design and composition. So it's from start to finish how to come up with a series of artworks. I have that, and I've just been asked to do another creative crowd one at Bragg when there's an exhibition on called Bloom. So I said, okay, let's do floral watercolour for that one because it suits it perfectly.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. Yeah. When is that one coming up?
September 14th, I want to say. It's on my website. Have a look.
Yes. So for anyone that wants to get into painting, have a go. Don't be afraid of it. It's absolutely fun. And I can personally say Jess is a wonderful teacher. She has some fantastic artworks. Now, after the show, we're going to pop up all of her details. Go to her site, have a look, do yourself a favour and book into one of her art classes. You won't be sorry. Well, Jess, I've got to, before we go, I'm going to ask 3 random questions, 3 things that you don't know about Jess. So what are 3 things that your students don't know about you?
I coach volleyball. I just thought of that because I have my little pendant on from my volleyball team. What else? What they won't know about me. My favourite food is popcorn with parmesan cheese on it.
Oh.
Another random thing. I'm absolutely petrified of public speaking.
Well, I have to honestly say I had the privilege of seeing Jess at the Moore Park Beach Art Networking Night, and you would never know it. So, Jess, thank you so much for being our very first guest on Wide Bay ITV, the creative space. Really enjoyed the talk, and stay tuned, viewers. Thank you very much for being a part of our very first show. Head to Jess's website, have a look at her amazing artwork. Now, our next show, we will have a mystery guest. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but another one of our local artisans. Well, I hope you can pop in for next time. And until then, keep creating, enjoy the day, and we'll see you same time on the creative space.